And it's hard to learn, and it's hard to learn. You're giving me such sweet replays, sweet replays. Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies. My wife and I used to joke about that song, Sweet Nothing, a dubstep. Remember when dubstep was a thing? Sweet Nothing. My wife and I used to joke that the lyrics were sexy garlic, which is by far a more interesting topic. But in any event, if there's any sort of attraction going on here, it is ConeOfArc's hot dog salami rounds filled with high explosive anti-tank shaped charges as he perforates the enemy time and again. What even was that spalling? Taking a hit from the BT, who's not quite as aggressive as he should be, and pays the price. Cone is going to have a nice match here in one of the oddities available in War Thunder only to players that play the market or put their time in for the event where this was unlocked. And myself, I am very pleased to have done so, as I learned some time ago that if you don't grind for an event vehicle, there comes a day where you will regret that, at least when you're me and you're a collector. And no, I have not sped up the replay. That's just how fast this thing shoots. For those of you that don't know the fast firing Geschützen power of the stubby 75mm German howitzer, boy howdy, there is a reason that German tanks can absolutely dominate from low tier all the way to high, and it really has to do with their firepower most of the time. And this stubby field gun, artfully lodged in a Sonderkraftfahrzeug in an open top configuration. For shame, cover yourself. At least maybe a tarp to keep the sun off, wouldn't you say? No. And this bold tank destroyer, this TD, performing terrifically in the hands of ConeOfArc, shows you just what this Teutonic level of firepower can accomplish. Coming off of low rank Sweden and low rank France, low rank Italy, so many of what we call the minor nations just cannot compare to the lethality and the overall well-roundedness of German, American, USSR vehicles in the game. And this crazy boy hot dog launcher is no exception. The Knackwurst und the Bratwurst is strong with this one, as you continue to see. And herein, I thought Cone was boned, but he's actually going to work his way out of this position and pick up some more kills on the way. We're almost 4 minutes into the video, and you have seen Cone acquire 9 ridiculous, highly violent kills in this Sonderkraftfahrzeug at a very low battle rating with a very high level of mobility. We're talking top of the line, moving around quick stuff, as well as a gun that, once you get a feel for the low velocity, pays off well in terms of armor penetration power and a not horrible post-penetration effect. I remember when the heat was a lot less hot than it is now, and it's still not a wonder round the way that APHE is, but with that incredible fire rate once again, it gets the job done. as with a previous replay video, this one is going to be 4 replays. I have an incredible number of replays on my computer now, and more coming in. A fact with which I am delighted, but it also inspires me to put out more material. One of the aspects that I've come to define this channel with, besides the fact that it is and probably will always be very casual, this is socialization for me. I'm here to socialize, not socialism. Back off. I live in Oregon, but I don't live in that part of Oregon, okay? What was I saying? Right! So besides the fact that I'm completely casual, invite link to the Discord. Go ahead, check it out. Also, I've committed to putting out as much material on a variety of things as I can, with a focus on sharing your replays with everyone, and that's been paying off really well. I used to do interviews, and I'd love to get back to doing those at some point, but my life just really isn't in a good position to have a quiet house for an hour according to some kind of schedule that I work out with somebody else. I have toddlers, and they really require and deserve my attention, and they will screamily demand it in a super adorable but more than moderately annoying way. ConeOfArc himself, with his sort of 80s nostalgia anime theme to his channel art and some great polish on his videos, shows off an adorable and deadly side of War Thunder that you could really get used to. His gameplay, almost always, very dynamic, lots of movement. The man plays tanks like some kind of race car, zipping from power position to power position and taking people down in all tiers and all aspects of ground battles in War Thunder. The man is a tanker, Kaplawi, and when he feels like dunking on low tier, there are few vehicles as exciting to show off that capability and that kind of action. Getting saved by a teammate here and having 15 kills than the Sonderkampf. So that was a sentence from hell. My grammar teacher is rolling in her not grave because she's not dead. In any event, that does it for that one. Cone did die there. And now we pick it up with QWERTY69 in some good old-fashioned Russian bias. This is the rare and elusive KV-122, even more rare, even more elusive, and that same delightful, satisfying Russian 122mm cannon that you will no doubt encounter many times, both on the battlefield and in your grind for Soviet vehicles. Something that is incredibly powerful with a stunningly long reload rate at lower tiers where you can find the KV-122, relatively speaking, as well as going all the way up to the IS-6, which is a beast even to this day at 7.3, where the penetration means less and the post-pen effect is still oh so tasty. In a meta where it can often face lighter skinned vehicles these days, with the popularity of such, it sort of evens out the IS-6, making it something of a brutish medium tank, which is always the best way to play those kinds of mobile heavies. But I digress. This is another kind of tank entirely. KV-122, one of the strong KVs at a battle rating where its frontal armor is not quite so terrifying, but its equally chonky side armor is a sight to behold and a tool that is well utilized in the hands of someone that knows how to angle their armor. No issue for someone that sets theirself up in a good firing position and takes down the enemy with one blap from that potato launcher 122mm cannon that takes no prisoners once it squeezes through the enemy's armor, if it can avoid the terrain on its way there. In any event, this is thrilling for me to watch. I have very fond memories of blapping people in my IS-6, of blasting people in my IS-2, which is probably the most popular carrier for this gun, but even more than the IS, the KV series of tanks have that very reliable side armor and the sort of boxy armor layout that allows you to angle in that diamond head-on formation that makes the armor work so well. Whether it's moving around corners or engaging at long range, the usefulness of this armor and the active positioning required to make the most out of it make the KV series of tanks extremely fun to play. And yet, there's always room for improvement. Welcome to the ultimate, the king of KV, one of those event vehicles that I regret deciding that it had too much of a life to research. This was from one of the old school Operation Suffer events, and it is a sight to behold, with extra thick 100mm side armor and equally chunky frontal plates, as well as a turret that can be very difficult to overcome if you don't aim for right next to the cannon, where the armor can be met at a flat angle. This heavy tank is one of the most clearly overperforming vehicles in the game, yet because of its rarity and its incredible value, and perhaps the fact that in an up tier it can get dunked on from the front, the KV-220 is a red menace in the game of War Thunder. Look at the size of this. It's like someone just took the stretch tool to a KV and said, "Make Papa Stalin proud." And that is exactly what QWERTYs did in this round, and I have no idea why I put such a huge black screen in here, but as I mentioned, we're going minimum editing here, so prepare yourself for the next replay. Of course, I know exactly what it is. It's Tiny German in the other overpowered heavy tank in the game, the M4 Sherman 105, which is a medium tank. Honest, even though at 2.7 battle rating, it has probably the best frontal armor protection of any vehicle in the game, and not terrible side armor for that battle rating as well. 10 degrees angle of gun depression, and a very chonky 105 capable of using shaped charge heat rounds that slap just as hard as you see them doing at the current time, making the Sherman 105 an absolute monster of armor protection, coupled with a gun that does not fall short when compared with other vehicles at its battle rating, even with a roof-mounted 50 cal that can do work in these low-tier battles. You have yourself a true bias machine. The dollar bias, strongest of the known biases, right after confirmation bias. In any event, beautiful sparks flying all around as the timeless American tradition of machine gun spamming enemies while you reload carries on with Tiny German to this day, no doubt having learned from the masters the arts of freedom. And listen to the sound of that gun, with graphical and sound improvements coming in update 1.97. It's always delightful to see the effect of that eye. And oh, that gun sounds so good. I gotta play me some Sherman 105. In any event, This is a tank that has seen its ups and downs. When it was first introduced, it was an absolute beast, one-shotting people constantly with its heat round that had incredible amounts of armor penetration power, as well as having, although at the time less effective, still fairly reliable armor. Nowadays, the Shermans stand out almost from start to beginning as very effective, well-rounded tanks. The 105 itself only falling short of its brethren in terms of muzzle velocity by a small margin. Reload rate, which matters quite a bit at this tier compared with the opposition that can have as low as 4 seconds reload. The somewhat longer amount of downtime on the 105 does make a difference, especially because the heat round doesn't always cripple or one-shot enemies the way you might want it to. Again, you're living in the world of AP HE and AP HEBC magic potato bus rounds, and the Sherman 105 certainly can feel lacking in that regard, but what you miss out on in terms of reliable firepower, you can make up for with skill, grit, and chunky frontal armor, as you see Tiny German doing here. Also, note the angle he's choosing for his armor. That seems well suited to bouncing rounds from the front, and he's in a position where his sides are protected by the terrain. You really couldn't ask for more in a Sherman tank, even a 105 at this relatively low tier. It feels like the Sherman 105 has almost no weaknesses, but one worth mentioning is the relatively poor gun handling with a wobbly 105 howitzer and the abysmal turret rotation rate when compared with almost every other Sherman. I think it's actually a hand crank turret, but that doesn't put it far behind most of the vehicles you'll face at this tier, with notable exceptions being around. And yet, 9 kills along with a base cap I didn't show you, 4 assists, and on his first death with plenty of spawn points to participate in the match, Tiny German. Next up, AmFam's very own Mr. Gray. You're on fire, bud. Welcome back to the game of War Thunder. He didn't have such a great time in the Tiger 2, but that's just one of those vehicles you have to use certain strategies with, and might I recommend long range engagements and really getting a feel for that long 88. Take your time, sip some tea, Earl Grey if you will, and relax, range find, set your scope, and blap some fools. If you miss a few shots, if you don't get a lot of kills, at least you'll have a good time. But Gray choosing an aircraft that is an absolute monster in the game of War Thunder, the original baby A-10, the HE-219, the first, as far as I'm aware, user-generated aircraft that was part of the, what was it called? Some kind of partnership program. And it is still one of the cheapest rank 4 premiums in the game. It is still an absolute delight to play, both in terms of a heavy fighter that is very heavy hitting for taking down bombers and the like, as well as what you see here, armed with both types of popular German 30mm cannons, as well as 20mm MG151s with a generous amount of ammunition. The burst mass of this monster is monstrous, and the armor penetration quality of the MK103 machine Kanonen by 2 are equally impressive, making this a versatile, stable, and powerful multi-purpose platform in the game of War Thunder. You really couldn't ask for more in a ground battle. Of course, this excuse me, this being a 6-7 match, this, what is it, a 4-3 now, I think? In realistic battles, aircraft could easily get outclassed by enemies if the skies were not kept clear by his allies, a fact, no doubt, that Mr. Gray appreciates, and really I'm happy to feature this replay as I listen to again the dead engine sound bug in War Thunder replay system. Thank you, War Thunder, fix your shit. And Gray comes in a bit too hard at the same time as so many rounds, respawning in the Tiger II-P. Another heavy tank that performs well at long range and not bad at any other distance. The long 88 and good reload rate coming through for the crew of Tiger II, where caution and careful strategy may fall short, as well as having nice frontal hull armor and overall decent gun handling, with the notable lack of a stabilizer that becomes so tasty around the battle rating of 6-7, facing off commonly, of course this is a 6-3 vehicle, but it's in the 6-7 lineup, and it does decently well in such a place. Commonly facing British stabilizers that have been the bane of German tankers from their inception. Get the lead, take the shot. Sorry, bud, not quite stable enough. Also, relative velocity being as it is, it might be a little better to aim a little bit more to the right. I've found myself having to adjust for that quite a bit in top tier battles that I've been participating in with my XM1. Yes, that's right, I'm that kind of guy. But I still end up placing solidly in the middle or near the top of my team, even with 2 premium vehicles, a helicopter and a medium tank in my lineup. I guess MBT prototype. Yeah, the XM1 is still an absolute beast and always will be, seemingly no matter what battle rating you put it at, until I don't know, the cows come home or Gaijin introduces even more ridiculous power creep into the game. But the IPM1, the XM1, very, very strong and completely off topic. Gray showing a little bit of overleading here, and aiming for roughly the a little bit of server lag there, and a beautiful shot into the immobilized and then shrapnelized American heavy tank, showing off the great long-range capability. That looks like about, 800 meters? Something like that. Maybe 700. Anyway, nice, solidly long-range kill, easily within the capability of the Tiger II's long 88, and even twice that range is definitely very doable for this monster. And once again, Gray, it's always been great to see you on the Toshio Thunder Discord. We've had a great history together, and it's just been great learning to appreciate you as a human being. And it's so exciting for me to see you getting back into War Thunder. So welcome back. This is your welcome back replay, and welcome back to that American pilot who launched 2 rockets very close to Gray's location, but the heavy, chunky armor for Tiger II comes through for it, where historical performance may have fallen short. There's only so much you can do with a last-ditch design like this one, but Gray showing it well, getting a modest amount of kills in his first match back in the game of War Thunder. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that replay, and once again, you are all invited to connect with me on the Discord, link in the description of this video. That's the best place to send me your replays, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.